Well, we'll go ahead and come to order. We already took roll. We're resuming our joint conference committee. So we're good to go. All right. So Dawn, a couple things. I think if you would help us, I think we had some, I think it'd be helpful if you kind of go through our sheets and make sure we all know what we have left to resolve. And then I ask you to prepare out, and I've shared this with my co-chairman on these two sheets. And then I think after you do that, you might take us through these, because I think these are where we'll have a lot of some thinking to do as we go through the day. So is that okay with you, Mr. Co-Chair? All right, so go ahead, Don.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Joint Conference Committee. You have resolved a majority of the items, but have at least 4 large categories left. One is the State Treasurer's Office, and there are several different issues yet to be resolved within that office. You have the University of Wyoming, and once again, you've got several different items ranging from School of Energy Resources to gender studies to cryptocurrency. A third category is education finance, but at least in my mind, I extend that not only to the ECA, but all of the transfers and deposits as well. Maybe those are 2 separate categories, but that is another maybe large category. And then there's a number of reports, some of which are small, for instance, in the Board of Equalization, and some of which are more substantive, such as the cash-based budgeting. And on the cash-based budgeting, that is appearing in the Revenue Committee today as well, or at least scheduled in the Senate Revenue Committee. And so this committee or that will need to pick which of those 2 proposals trumps, because right now they are in conflict with each other. And for example, the budget bill directs that study to the Select Committee on Capital Financing and Investments, and the legislation, House Bill 147, directs that study to the Joint Revenue Interim Committee, as one example. I have worked with Senator Kinski and Representative Larson on the 2 conceptual amendments with respect to the Department of Health Older American Act, as well as the FMAP improvement. And I think we're very close to language on that. Senator Kinski made a few word changes early this morning, but I think that is resolved. And once it does, perhaps by this afternoon, or I will circulate that language to all members as well. Senator Perkins did ask me to sketch out in visual form some of the revenue distributions. So the first graphic is 2-sided. It has color yellow at the bottom. And I will start on the side with the distribution of severance taxes. This relates to section 314. And the highlighted area is the House position. And everything else is current statute, which happens to be the Senate position. And you can see at the top of the page, 1.5% of the severance tax is constitutional and deposited into the corpus of the PMTF. Then there is a 1% severance tax, and that's an errant A in there, sorry. That is distributed also to the permanent funds. And then everything else gets distributed through a formula through the severance tax distribution account. And first, a swap is made with the 1 penny fuel tax for the leaking underground storage tank. And then you have a number of entities, beneficiaries that receive a percentage of the under the cap, and the cap is 155 million. And then everything over the cap under current law is distributed 1/3 to the general fund, 2/3 to the budget reserve account. And you can see our estimates for fiscal year 2023. It's about $160, $170 million total, split 1/3 budget reserve, or 1/3 general fund, 2/3 budget reserve. The provision in section 314 on the House position, and this is also the JAC position in the original bill, distributes 1/2 of that amount over the cap, up to $50 million to the School Foundation Program Reserve Account and to the Budget Reserve Account. Right now, under January Craig, there is no expectation of any money being deposited in those yellow boxes. However, that was with $65 oil forecast. And this morning, before coming in here, it looks like Wyoming oil is likely to break $100. That's obviously less than WTI, but $100 compared to $65 would generate a sufficient amount to fill up that $50 million to the School Foundation Program Reserve Account. If you flip the page, but it is capped. So the most that.
And so if you went, Don, if it did that and oil, Wyoming oil stays at $90, $100 a barrel, and you end up with this 100 million, you 50 would go to the BRA, 50 would go to the School Foundation Reserve Account, and then the other statutory, same distribution of severance taxes, as all other severance taxes, which is that then 1/3 is everything else go 2/3 to the BR to the Budget Reserve Account and 1/3 to the general fund.
That's correct.
Happens to the access. Okay.
So the deviation from current law is a maximum of $50 million to the School Foundation Program.
And so this is what's in the have we addressed this in the green books?
You have not addressed the yellow shaded areas in the statutes. However, this also is current law because this same provision was adopted in the 2020 budget bill. So if you look at the January Craig report, it's much smaller money, but about $4 million is being distributed to the School Foundation Program Reserve Account because we are exceeding that secondary cap. So while this is not in statute, it has been in place for a biennium.
Okay, thank you.
On the other side of the page is the positions on section 315. And once again, the House position is highlighted in yellow. I won't walk through. This one is actually much simpler. There isn't a lust swap with fuel taxes. There isn't a 1%. There isn't a constitutional amount that goes to the permanent fund. It's much more direct, meaning the first $200 million is distributed among the beneficiaries, and then everything over that amount under current law gets distributed 2/3 to the Budget Reserve Account with a carve out for $8 million for the University of Wyoming for residence hall bonding purposes, and then 1/3 to the School Foundation Program. And the provisions in section 315 on the House side and in the adopted JAC position is 1/2 to the School Foundation Program and 1/2 to the Budget Reserve. So the difference there is pretty small. Rather than 1/3, 2/3, it's 1/2. So you're talking about a 17% change. What is different about this compared to the severance tax is there is no limit, meaning an unlimited amount would be distributed 50-50 rather than that cap at 50 million. And then secondly, just to be aware, we expect even with $4 gas we ran and $4 gas and $90 oil. We did this a few days ago. For fiscal year 2023, $20 million under that scenario, which is pretty robust. $90 oil and $4 gas would go $90 or 20 million more would go to the School Foundation Program. There is one big caveat on this, and that is the federal mineral royalty rate. If that changes to 18.75%, this provision would have hundreds, plural, of millions of dollars of impact.
If they change it, that could only be for new leases.
Well, That is the presumption, and the presumption is there would be no coal, because if there were a new coal lease, we'd get a coal lease bonus in all likelihood. So it really would apply to oil and gas, and it would be new production. So it would not be immediate. And in fact, there is a fiscal note on that piece of legislation that shows a more modest impact in the early years, but eventually it would grow.
So, but as you get through I mean, look at that one do you know, I've been looking at this answer a little bit and I haven't found the answer. Do you know, does it take congressional action to raise the lease rates? I think they're talking about moving up to about 18.5%. Does it take congressional action to do that, or do they have the power within does Interior already have that power?
I was under the impression that the Interior and the BLM in particular already had the regulatory ability to make that adjustment.
Right. I think they can go. I think they have the regulatory authority. Just looking at some CBO report, trying to research some of this. I think they can do up to 18.5% already, or maybe even 20. I'm not sure. I think they already have that authority, but I couldn't find a definitive statement. Just said they already have that authority.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Stiff.
Don, on the severance tax handout in the yellow highlighted area, is the reason that the cap is 459 million in 23, but 429 in 24, is that because the Craig estimates either lower prices or lower production in 24 than in 23?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stiff, that's exactly correct. Yeah. So these these secondary thresholds are established based on the Craig report. And I think we had, keep in mind that goes, so fiscal year 24 would actually be a portion of calendar year 25. So we're looking out a fair distance. And we did have declining coal production. And we also had a lower natural gas price in the out year. Mr. Chairman, I had one more handout, and it does not relate to section 314 and 315, but this is all of the other deposits and tips. And one side, I'll start on the Senate side, and these are much simpler. The first position of the Senate is a deposit of $75 million for a total of $150 million to the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund corpus, and no money deposited into the Common School Permanent Land Fund corpus. Then dropping down to the bottom of the page, the Senate side did not modify any of the transfer to the Lsra in the current biennium, 21-22, 3 months from today, 3.5 months. But they did adopt a budget balancing amendment to transfer $100 million to the SIPA in the event there were other amendments that would have been adopted, or modifications to the capital construction bill, Senate File 67. That does not look as likely as it did a few days ago. And there is language that automatically sweeps that to the Lsra at the end of 2024.
Go ahead, Senator Hicks.
So Don, other than the budget balance, this is the normal flow of funds.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Right.
Okay.
On the second side of the sheet is the House position, and it starts at the top, comparable to the Senate, at least the same money. The House does not deposit anything into the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund corpus or the Common School Permanent Land Fund corpus. Rather, they make $75 million deposits to the respective reserve accounts. And you can see that brings up the balance of those, forecast balance of those two reserve accounts to the amounts listed there, 209 and 189. They also, on the House side, modified the tip or the cap for the rollover of reserve monies into the permanent corpus. And they increased that from 150%, which is current law, to 225% for the period of the budget for both reserve accounts. This has a practical implication of increasing those reserves on the PMTF side by about $300 million, from 641 to 962 million And on the Common School Permanent Land Fund side, it has the impact of raising that approximately $160 million from $322 million to $483 million. And then at the bottom here, there is an interception of the tip from the budget reserve account to the Lsra at the end of this biennium. And after $320 million is tipped to the Lsra, there is a provision that the next $50 million would be deposited to the Wyoming's Tomorrow Endowment if House Bill 31 is enacted. Right now, we're not anticipating that. We're about $84 million away. But a lot of things can happen, and that certainly could be met if we sustain $110 oil. Getting all 50 is still a considerable stretch.
So just backing up, I mean, you say you're about $84 million away. You think you're about $84 million away from the 320? Is that what?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And in order to show you where we get that money, that is the Lsra tip that shows up on the profile on the House side is on page 3, 236 million. So that's about 84 from the 320.
All right, thank you.
What line was that on?
Yes, it's on page 3, line 34, 33. This is awfully small type. I wonder who prints these.
And then Dawn, going back, just doing a comparison between the Senate file positions and the House file positions with respect to the budget reserve transfers to the Lsra. When I look on the House bill side, you've got a transfer of 236 million. On the Senate file, you've got a transfer of 142.3 million. Is the difference then the $100 million budget balance, or is it simply, is that simple?
Mr. Chairman, there are really 4 items. There's the 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the pathways, which was defeated yesterday. So that 10 million is going to increase the House position. Then there's the 10.8 million for employee compensation, which you approved. So that has a little bit of an impact. And then the other big one is actually the bottom box you have on that handout, which is the deposit to the landfill, municipal landfill.
The 6 million. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions for Dawn or for staff? Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate, and thanks for these. I think this helps us understand exactly where our differences are. I think that'll help us have a little bit more intelligent discussion, knowledgeable discussion about what we're trying to do. Mr. Chairman, do you want to work a little bit, or do you want to talk a little bit, or you want to go back and confer with colleagues? What's your pleasure?
Why don't we chat real quick?
You and me, or all of us?
You may.
Okay. Sure.
Why don't we take a break, Mr. Chairman? Take a 5-minute break.
Take a 5-minute break. Okay.
I need a 5-minute break.
Page 2, Mr. Chairman, line 37, line 38.
Yeah, propose that for line 37 and line 38 with respect to the treasurer, that we would delete and further amend so, and Don, on the one, so, okay, yeah, all right, I've got this. So delete and further amend so that we would, what we want to do is modify the footnote that we allow for salaries and benefits for up to FTE, that 681,000 allows salary and benefits for up to FTE, but it's restricted to additional accounting positions in the what would it be, the accounting positions in the investment division. So you're looking up something. I'm just giving you a pause. You're looking up something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the original amendment had that in the internal investments line item, and I think the accountants appear in the investment and financial accounting line item.
Right. And so how many, and then were there two in that in the original budget?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there was a request for
Transfer.
And what was the JAC position for that one when we started?
Mr. Chairman, I believe you added one accountant and you added one chief COA, chief.
It was either a CEO or a COO.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, all right. So what this does is going to allow so at the end of the day, this is going to allow 3 additional positions in the investment accounting office. And then the 681, I think, increases that amount to cover those salaries. And then I think one of those may need to be a supervisory accountant. Do we need to change any of that language, or is it just if we designate the 3 and leave the money, they can work it out?
Mr. Chairman, you could do either way. You could leave it to them, and I'm confident they could work it out, or you could specify 2 accountants and 1 supervising accountant.
And then with that, and then what we would do is we delete 38, I believe on 38, which is we would delete that. But going back, really checking, can you read back to us the designation with respect to the COO, CEO language? What we have in there.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. With the deletion of House Third Reading Amendment number 3, the language would state, of this other funds appropriation, $651,066 is appropriated for salary and benefits of a full-time chief executive officer or chief operations officer. The Investment Funds Committee shall recommend whether the position of maximum benefit to the state's investment and financial accounting success is a chief executive officer or a chief operations officer, interview applicants, and recommend a candidate for the position to be housed within the state treasurer's office, period. The State Loan and Investment Board shall select the candidate and retain hiring and termination authority over this position. This appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purpose, and the appropriation is effective immediately.
Okay. And so I think, so we want to keep that in place. So I think that's why we would delete 38, that the house, which was House 303, Division A, I guess. I'm sorry, Division, it was adopted. So we delete that. So let's stop right there, and if we can, we'll discuss that to that point.
Mr. Chairman, so that last language that Don read pertaining to the CEO, COO was the JAC language in the bill, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So we're retreating to the JAC position on the COO, CEO. And then we're adding these additional 3 positions plus an additional 681 for these additional 3 positions. So there'll be 4 accounting positions that are now funded for, I guess it'd be almost 1.3 million. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Any comment on the $1 million for the consulting?
We'll talk about that one in a second. I just want to parse this one out and see if, just make sure everybody understands this. Is there any questions about this proposal?
Mr. Chairman.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I prefer your language of 2 accountants and 1 supervising accountant, just to make sure that we get that supervising accountant in place.
I think that this gives us, I'm fine with that. I think I consider that a friendly amendment. I think that this puts about between 13 and 14 accountants in that office now, and that's just too many. That's just too many not to have supervisors. So I think in the structure, so I'm fine with that. I think I think they would do that anyway, but I think that's fine. So I see that as a friendly amendment. So is there any other discussion about this amendment? Any other conditions or anything else that anybody wants to see on this?
Is it effective immediately?
Yeah, effective immediately. So, I mean, I don't think they filled them from last year, but there's no reason if they can fill them, they get on a hot streak.
Get started.
Get her done. Yeah. Go ahead, Senator Drew.
Thank you. On the other, on 38, I was confused at what you were saying. Did you say we're going to delete that amendment?
Yes, we're doing.
H3003A.
Yes, we
Delete that,
delete.
and then we're just deleting and further amending the other one up above.
Right.
2 accounting positions, 1 supervisorial position. And then we're going to talk about the rest on that.
We'll talk about the rest. This is just the accounting. There's another $1 million that has to do with,
Right.
with the folks that are over there now and helping them. So we'll deal with that here, but I just want to make sure everybody understands if there's any issues on this one before we, and we'll do the other one here. We'll vote on all at once. But is there anything else we want to do with respect to the accounting office? Representative Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to get clear. There's the 681. We've got the 651 in footnote number 7 in the budget. And that is, that is in addition to.
Yes,
Thank you.
right. It's with 3 more folks. And it's up to, so they don't have to hire 3. They do it as they can, but it ups that limit so they can keep building out that back office.
Thank you. So I guess my follow-up is, so essentially they've got 1.3 million, call it. If the salaries were not, if our estimate of what it costs to hire a supervisory accountant and skilled other accountants go over the estimate, they can use those funds as needed, even if they hire 1 less accountant.
That's true. And that's why the supervisory stuff, I think that amount is for 3 level 10 accountants, but you may need a level 12 as a supervisor. So they may not be able to quite get all 3. They may end up with 2 out of this instead of 3, but we're giving the office that flexibility.
So one more follow-up. So then we've got the $1 million basically going into the 900 series. Or is there a thought, pardon?
That's next.
Right.
That's next. We're going to talk about that in a second. I just want to.
Just
wanted-
so, but hypothetically, do they have flex between the 900 and the 100 if the salaries are insufficient?
No, they don't. But it's funded differently. What happens, we've appropriated, I don't know if it's $60 or $70 million for manager fees, and the internal investment people have been doing a lot of that. We haven't had those. So they're not spending that amount. There's ample money in there to deal with the other. So any other conditions or Mr. Chairman, I think just in case it seemed to me that just a reminder to you, we were wondering if you wanted those positions hired by the COO, or do you had that discussion?
Yeah, well, it's our preference that the COO be hired first, and that we assist in hiring those.
Or do you want to put that in here, or do you want to let that ride? What do you want to do? I hope that they'll act, I hope that the treasurer will take our recommendation to move on, but I don't want to mandate him to. Okay. So everybody understand, so we're right where we were. So now we'll switch gears just a minute. So the million, as we talk about the million, my discussion with both the treasurer and his chief deputy were that they thought they had ample money, that they were saving ample money out of ample, and not Apple money, but ample money. Maybe they said Apple money, I don't know, but the ample money out of the savings from the fees that were authorized for, which were essentially 900, so we authorized for the managers to cover these costs. And so did this add an additional $1 million to that? Okay. And so I'm inclined to further as additional. I would not authorize the additional $1 million. I think my recollection is that they had plenty of money from their savings to do that, and so this $1 million is an unnecessary authorization.
I do have a question. What if he simply doesn't hire a CEO? Chooses not to.
And he keeps working with what he's got. And I mean, he has new people. He just keeps pounding away over there. I mean, so anyway, so then we would delete the $1 million. We would not have the extra 1 million. So ultimately, all it is, it ends up being this additional language with respect to employees. All right, do we understand the motion? Everybody understand the motion?
Do we need to put language in? Whether these employees are eligible for a performance compensation program or not?
I don't think you
The answer
do.
is no. The accountants are paid a higher wage and what they shouldn't be benefiting from the investment.
So, Mr. Chairman, so maybe I just need to hear the motion. My understanding was we were still looking at accountants and then the discussion whether we do a COO.
Mhm.
It seems to me like the COO is part of the integral component of that, may or may not be available for employment compensate, performance compensation. I'm trying to recollect what we did with the entire office. Or is it just the investment staff as it currently sits today? But I thought at one point in time, there was some additional distributions for the entire staff.
That, I think that's correct. And the reason that we had 681,000 so that the COO would be paid 350,000 a year or 300
200, I think 250, but yeah,
plus benefits.
plus
So that-
benefits, plus eligible for incentive compensation as well, I think.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, I think that, and Tamara, please correct me, I think the language of the current statute for investment policy specifically designates which positions: investment analyst, senior investment analyst, investment officer, and chief investment officer. It does not include CEO, COO, or any of the accountants.
Okay, thank you for that record. Does that change anything, Senator Hicks?
No, that's what.
Get straight. And I think there's more work to do on CAPN and elsewhere on that. I don't think we're done working on that incentive compensation issue, but so everybody understand the motion? Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. So, anything else, Mr. Chairman? Anything else we
One
can
more
wrap
quick
up?
one.
One more quick one? Okay.
Chairman, but here on
On page 4, item 67, where we have in there to transfer $6 million to the municipal solid waste landfill remediation. I would move that we adopt or delete and further, adopt and further, which one do I do, Don? Delete and further amend, thank you. Delete and further amend, and we reduce the 6 million general funds to 3 million prison account. And then we have language in there. We're pretty confident that this is accurate, that this can't happen, but would put language in there that if these funds, the use of these funds would qualify for ARPA direct payment and is adopted in the ARPA bill, that this appropriation would go away altogether. But within the last little bit, we are pretty confident that that won't happen. So it would be 3 million out of the prison fund.
ARPA direct.
ARPA direct was what was referred.
Which is 66, 67,
66
66.
and House Bill 66. Thank you.
Senate File 66.
Yeah, correct.
You got it, Don? You want to say it back so we understand it?
What did we say?
Mr. Chairman, House third reading amendment number 19 is deleted and further amended to transfer $3 million from the penitentiary, and account to the municipal solid waste landfill remediation account. This amount shall be reduced by any appropriation from ARPA direct funds in Senate File 66 as enacted.
Thank you. That's what I said.
Good job.
And Mr. Chairman,
Any
just
questions, any discussion? Everybody understand
Mr.
this
Chairman,
one?
just a
Go
question.
ahead, Representative Stitt.
In the unlikely event that the Senate File 66 contains more than $3 million for this landfill issue, I take it that the number doesn't go negative, right?
No, it just removes the 3 million.
It just goes, it's to zero, whether if it's
Yeah,
3 million or
zeros it
above, it goes to zero.
Yep.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries.
So
We're late. I think we can, the majority of Florida will excuse us from general file this afternoon. So I know you guys have a little bit heavier lift on your side than we do.
So it'll be the same as yesterday. As soon as we can get out of third reading on ARPA and CapCon, then we can probably step up.
Okay, so we'll try and shoot
So
for,
we'll just be in contact.
try and shoot for 3.
Okay.
See if it works.
Mr. Chairman, so does that have all of page 2 reconciled?
That's good. So is we, anything?
Oh, we
left on
got
page
34. It does not.
No, we
You have
got,
that reports issue.
we have, so what do we have left on there? I have part of 39
And all of 34.
and all of 34.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, at 34. I keep forgetting about that one.